You are watching the Friday edition of Platinum Northwest TV News. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Phildelphia Mangoeng. Let's take a look now at the leading top stories. First up, the Northwest Department of Agriculture stocks up on rabies vaccines to curb an outbreak, and the city of Matlosana warns of normal water supply interruption in Oudorp, Klerksdorp. In the business news, Sibanye Stillwater to take action against the Gruendal workers who staged a sit-in. And in the sports news, South Africa is gunning for all 3 points as they face Nigeria tonight. We begin here. The Northwest Agriculture Department has started to vaccinate livestock in areas including Daung in a bid to curb the spread of rabies in rural areas. This disease is normally found in wildlife such as jackals and can spread to domestic animals and even humans. The department says that rabies was first identified in farms on Mamusa and has now spread to 2 areas in Daung. In other news, the city of Matlosana has issued a notice to inform consumers of planned interruptions to normal water supply that will be experienced in Oudorp on Sunday, the 9th of June from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The interruption is due to the cleaning and disinfection of the Oudorp reservoir, according to the municipality. Affected areas will include the Klerksdorp CBD, Kampeldaldorp, Elandia, Sonvloed, Rooshevel, Freemanville, Oudorp, and Elandsheuvel. Consumers are urged to use water sparingly during this period. In more news, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says that ANC wants to form a government of national unity. This follows a meeting of the party's National Executive Committee at Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The party failed to get an outright majority following last week's general election. Now the president discussed the way forward for the country. Let's take a look.
The ANC acknowledges that we are at a moment of fundamental consequence in the life of our nation. Our country requires extraordinary leadership and courage to plot a way forward. We must act with speed to safeguard national unity, peace, stability, inclusive economic growth, non-racialism, and non-sexism. We will ensure the continuation of a progressive agenda of social and economic transformation in our country. We have therefore agreed that we will invite political parties to form a government of national unity as the best option to move our country forward. The modalities of the government of national unity will take into account the conditions prevailing at this moment in our country's history. The purpose of the government of national unity must be first and foremost to tackle the pressing issues that South Africans want to be addressed. These issues include job creation and the growth of our economy that will be inclusive, the high cost of living, service delivery, crime, and corruption. The NEC has agreed that this moment calls for the broadest unity of the people of South Africa. This moment also calls for multi-party cooperation and multi-stakeholder collaboration if we are to overcome the severe challenges that confront our country. From the results of these elections, it is clear that South Africans expect their leaders to work together to meet their needs. They expect us to find common ground, to overcome our differences, and to act together for the good of everyone.
Ramaphosa also spoke about the ANC's approach into the formation of the provincial government. The Economic Freedom Fighter Deputy President addressed the media earlier today in response to the ANC's decision of a unity government and had this to say.
Of the EFF in all the provinces, and appreciate the work which was done by the deputies and everyone else who was involved in the election program. So that is where we are. We are going to appraise the entire leadership collective that based on the principles which were adopted after the 2021 local government elections or negotiations, we have begun having discussions thus far with the ANC on a possible coalition government based on certain principles, and those principles include non-negotiably an appreciation of the EFF 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars for economic freedom in our lifetime. And that basically means that whoever is going to relate with the EFF or expects the EFF to be government with them must have an appreciation that amongst our cardinal pillars is expropriation of land without compensation for equal distribution. It's a policy position that speaks to the nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy. It's building of state capacity with the aim of abolishing tenders and have internal state capacities, provision of free education, healthcare, sanitation, and all the basic services to all the people who cannot afford them. It's the development of the African economy, it's fighting against corruption, it's massive protected industrial expansion. But of course, as part of the additional points which were highlighted in the press conference which we held in the Results Operations Center, highlighted that whoever is going to align with the economic freedom fighters should commit to anti-racism, that we do not want to reinvent racism, but two must also commit to the global anti-imperialist project, that the agenda of the global south should not be undermined in the fight against global imperialism, that the balance of forces globally should be shifted in favor of the forces of change, the progressive forces, and not to reinvent the dominance of the West. That is the issues. And of course, there are other areas which we give emphasis on. We should start the discussion of removing the stem from the national anthem of South Africa. That we must provide free sanitary towels to all the girl children who do not have sanitary towels. So those are some of the key issues that we're highlighting as the economic freedom fighters should constitute a coalition. So that is our approach in terms of how we're moving forward. And of course, we are scheduled to meet again with the national negotiation team of the African National Congress. We had a preliminary meeting to state our positions, and then they had their own National Executive Committee. We're now going to listen to them when they come with a much more detailed proposals as to how do they respond to the policy issues that we have highlighted. Because if there is going to be any government that is constituted, it must be based on common core principles, not just convenience of positions and who gets what and what. At the core of whatever we're going to agree upon should be the policy issues that seek to undo the legacy and remnants of apartheid and colonialism, which still are a lived reality in South Africa. So we need to then deal with that much more conclusively. So that is basically where we are. And thank you very much.
Onto the story now. With high unemployment rate and people struggling to find jobs, scammers are finding ways to scam people out of their money, and the Department of Employment and Labour has issued a stern warning for citizens. Here's Teboho Tejani, the spokesperson for the Department of Employment and Labour.
The Department of Employment and Labour solemnly brings to the attention of public the fraudulent schemes misappropriating the department's official insignia, letterheads, contact information, and personnel identities. The department has identified instances where these elements are falsely employed in bogus tender notices and employment propositions with the intent to defraud individuals. These fraudulent offers involve false job positions or tenders necessitating the submissions of applications and the payment of fees for employment processing or training purposes. Although these communications may appear legitimate, they frequently exhibit spelling and grammatical inaccuracies and may occasionally use the actual names of the department staff members, these schemes may solicit personal details such as identification numbers, banking information, or other confidential data. Please be aware the department imposes no fees for job applications or tender proposals. Genuine correspondence will only be issued from the authenticated email addresses and contact numbers. Contact numbers of provinces are listed on our official website www.labour.gov.za. The department advises the public to authenticate all tenders, employment openings, or other such offers against the information available on the department's website and the department-sanctioned social media channels, which is for Facebook and YouTube is Department of Employment and Labor, and for both Twitter and Instagram is @Dept of Labor. In the event of encountering such fraudulent activities, the department urges you not to engage or divulge any personal information. Should you be confronted with these scams, the department implores you to report the incident to the relevant authorities and our department using official contact details as 012-309-4000. The department requests that you share this alert within your networks to avoid further victimization.
The department has also come out to condemn the gender-based violence as they are mourning the loss of one of its employees.
The Department of Employment and Labor is deeply saddened to confirm the tragic loss of one of its employees from the Fort Beaufort Labor Center in the Eastern Cape. It is alleged that the life of this young employee was taken by another staff member who was also their partner. Both individuals were valued members of our department. We extend our deepest condolences to the family of the deceased and to all our officials who are dealing with the shock and sadness of this devastating event. The loss of a young life in such circumstances is a tragedy beyond words, said the Acting Director General of the Department of Employment and Labor, Ms. Onke Mjo. The department acknowledges that the two colleagues were in a relationship. Relationships occur in all walks of life, but regrettably, this relationship ended in such a tragic manner. The department condemns gender-based violence in its entirety. The recent report released by the Public Protector on GBV underscores the urgency and importance of addressing this issue. Now, we are faced with this matter within our ranks. The department will continue to support the family affected by this tragedy during this difficult time. We are committed to providing all necessary assistance to those affected by this tragic incident. This matter is now in the hands of the court authorities. The department has full confidence in the justice system and believes that the truth will prevail. The department does not condone gender-based violence in any form and will continue to advocate for a safe and respectful work environment for all. In parallel with the ongoing court proceedings, the department is steadfast in commitment to commence immediate and appropriate internal procedures, potentially encompassing disciplinary actions. We urge all our employees and the public to support those affected by GBV and to stand together in condemning such acts. Let us strive to create a society where every individual is treated with dignity and respect, concluded Ms. Mjo.
In international news now, U.S. President Joe Biden has drawn parallels between Russia's invasion of Ukraine and World War II in a speech commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day landings in Normandy in France. A host of world leaders were present at the ceremonies on Thursday, including French President Emmanuel Macron, Prince William of Wales, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was not invited to the commemoration ceremony, launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. Throughout the speech, Biden frequently drew connections between the fight against fascism in World War II and the ongoing war in Ukraine. He launched a direct attack on President Putin, referring to the long-term Russian leader as tyrant. Let's take a look. The president also sought to rally Western leaders, repeatedly highlighting the increasing threat from anti-democratic forces across the world and of freedom coming increasingly under threat. And with that said, let's now take a look at the business news. In the business news, Sibanye-Stillwater is to take disciplinary action against employees who staged an underground sit-in at its Kwezi shaft in Kroondal, Rustenburg this week. More than 200 employees refused to come up to the surface after the end of their shift earlier this month, while another shift was disturbed as more workers gathered in an open space on the surface. The workers were demanding benefits from an employee share ownership program, ESOP. Sibanye-Stillwater argued that the ESOP for the workers at the operation had not been operationalized. The workers who remained underground later surfaced on Wednesday. Sibanye-Stillwater insisted that it will not condone illegal action by any shareholders which may compromise the safety and well-being of employees or the sustainability of its operations. The company and workers union had agreed to a provision under the 2023 Kroondal wage agreement for management and unions to explore the feasibility of introducing the Rustenburg ESOP for Kroondal employees once the acquisition for the Kroondal pool and share agreement by Sibanye Rustenburg Platinum Mines had been finalized. And that's all from the business news. Up next, we wrap up with the sports. In soccer news, South Africa will be gunning for all 3 points from their 2026 World Cup qualifier with Nigeria this evening. The rivalry is expected to be fierce after the two sides came face-to-face in the semi-finals of the recent Africa Cup of Nations, where the Super Eagles emerged as winners on penalties after the match had ended in a 1-1 draw. In 15 games played between the two nations, the Super Eagles have won 8 games, while Bafana have 2 wins alongside 5 draws. And after 2 rounds of qualifying fixtures in Group C, Bafana are now in second place on 3 points from 1 win and 1 loss, 1 point behind leaders Rwanda, while Nigeria are third with 2 points after 2 draws. South Africa, though, have reportedly endured their fair share of difficulties making it to Uyo for this weekend's game, having been forced to spend the night in Port Harcourt as the airport had closed before their scheduled departure. Bafana will play their fourth game in Group C against Zimbabwe in Bloemfontein next week Tuesday. Only group winners are guaranteed qualification for the World Cup, and Bruce believes that his team has done more than enough in the past to be well prepared for these types of matches. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again on Monday evening. Till then, have a blessed weekend. Good night and take care.